The Philadelphia 76ers have now dropped to 5-15 on the season on a controversial ending against the Orlando Magic, in which Tyrese Maxey was not rewarded for being fouled on the floor. They now have dug the hole even deeper for the season in a game that was there for the taking, but not all negatives to take away from this one. I want to start off by diving right in on what went wrong at the end there. Ultimately, as far as the game as a whole, that it was a 106-102 victory by the Orlando Magic here. But what the story of tonight is unfortunately the officials. And to dive into the exact play down the stretch, with the Sixers down 3, fouled on the wrist by Anthony Black there, Tyrese Maxey goes up with the shot, is not rewarded, ultimately misses, and that is basically how it went for today's game. So it's tough to be fully mad at Tyrese Maxey for this. He is very clearly hit on the wrist. This should have been a foul at the minimum on the floor, and he kind of did the right thing by going up into the shot form, trying to get those 3 points, as that would have given him the chance to tie the game at the free throw line there. Ryan, what was going through your mind as that entire play kind of unwinded at the tail end of tonight's game?
Yeah, I mean, that's a situation where I'm pretty sure even if you were to ask the Magic coach, because that's a situation where sometimes the ref or even a player on the Magic, like Anthony Black, would go up to the ref and be like, "We're looking to foul here because we don't want to let them get up a clean look from three."
Right.
That has to be a conversation that was had at some point. I would almost guarantee between a player on the Magic, a coach on the Magic, and the officials, and just even an official knowing in your mind you're not going to want to let the opposing team, get up a clean look from three. That's a situation where you look to foul, even if it's on the floor, and then you let them go and shoot in the bonus. You don't want to be beaten on a three. And so they were clearly going for the foul, and that is just a blatant miss, a terrible miss, and something that an NBA ref cannot miss in that spot. I agree with you. Maxey did the right thing. He felt the contact. He should go up with it, even if it's not going to be called, because you see that type of situation all the time where intentional fouls come in and a guy will just chuck up a shot in hopes that the ref calls it on the way up. I think when you look at it here from that angle, I would have called it dead on the floor there,
Right.
not going up officially. But still, that is a huge missed call, and it ultimately cost the Sixers the game, or at least a chance at the game there at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, like, the worst case situation there should be that it's an on the floor foul. The fact that they got nothing out of it is absurd. Now, I will take a step back and say, in general, I just hate the principle of leaving the game in the hands of the officials. But this is not Tyrese Maxey's fault here. He acted accordingly, acted correctly to what the situation that unfolded in front of him. You're absolutely right. That is a normal basketball decision that teams try and foul when they're up 3 to make sure that there is not a chance they can get a potential game tying shot off. That is exactly what went down. Tyrese Maxey reacted accordingly, and ultimately the Sixers end up basically getting screwed for it. So pretty frustrating that is how things went down. Overall, not a game that I'm that upset about. It's just kind of how, and my last kind of note on the officials before we move on here, that was far from the only mistake from the officials, even dating back 10 seconds before that play where they foul
Yep.
Franz Wagner like 5 seconds before they actually get the call when they are trying to intentionally foul, or both the replay reviews, the one that was called on Gershon Yabusele that was very clearly a charge to me, somehow stood up and was a block on review, and then he was fouled down the other end. Not only did they say that the foul was incorrect when it very clearly looked like he smacked him on the wrist to me, but they changed the foul to somebody else. So the Magic were able to keep their challenge. The bottom line, Gershon not getting rewarded for it. It was just a disaster, and it's annoying to me that this happens as often as it does. But as far as the game as a whole, and to kind of dive into this, a 106-102 victory here. Jared McCain, probably the story of today once again, which I feel like we're saying all too often now. But 24 points, he had 6 assists, shot 4 of 8 from 3. What do you think of Jared in this one, or any other takeaways you want to immediately jump into?
I'd start at the top with Nick Nurse and say it's coaching malpractice that he's not in the starting lineup every game going forward.
Okay.
I mean, for the performance that McCain has put on, not even in a limited sample size anymore. We have 10 plus games of him going out there and looking like a legit NBA starting guard, and
Yeah.
a high level one at that as well. I'm just more and more impressed by some of his takes to the basket and his ability to finish in the
Nasty.
mid range on pull ups and stuff. He had, I think, his most impressive play tonight was a missed layup. It was one that rolled in and out. But the one that he had in transition where he did an up and under over a shot blocker, it's just like things like that. I didn't know that he had completely in his bag, but he continues to show it off each and every game that he's given a chance in extended minutes. He played 38 minutes tonight. There's no reason that he shouldn't be between 32 and 38 on a nightly basis. He just continues to impress game after game, and he looks more and more comfortable each time out there. So he needs to be in the starting lineup going forward, and I don't really see any excuse as to why not.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I know we kind of were all over this since the second that they drafted McCain from watching a little bit of him at Duke, but don't get the TikTok dancing and nails painted, get confused for this dude being soft because he is the opposite of that. That dude's a warrior on the floor, man. He's chirping, he's talking trash, he's getting in the mix, he's shoving down Gogo Batazzi on a rebound attempt where he's spiking him to the floor. He's in the mix of everything, which I love to see there. And he's smiling and giving you 25 while he's doing it. So pretty cool that is the case there. I will say, like, in a little bit fairness to Nick Nurse, now, based on the constraints of the Sixers team, you absolutely need offense. That is the priority here. I do understand what he means by the defensive situations, and it's less about, to me, like straight up Jared McCain being capable of one-on-one guarding a guys. To be honest, I think he's been fairly solid at that and done just fine in that situation. I did see several missed rotations, particularly in the first half. I thought was more obnoxious, and that the opportunities were there. I know that's the situation for what's holding him back, but then again, you got to think about the situation with this team. When you don't have Paul George, when you don't have Joel Embiid, you need scoring on this roster. So I'm 100% with you that the good far outweighs the bad, and the only way he's going to get better at those types of things is to play right through it. So very excited by what we saw from him tonight. I totally agree with you that he needs to be in the starting lineup moving forward. I kind of throwing this to you on the spot here, but if you're picking your ideal starting lineup for this Sixers team, and we'll say in a perfect world that there is Paul George and Joel Embiid back, you still think Jared McCain makes that list, and who's your final fifth member there?
I'd go with McCain, Maxey, Paul George, Embiid, and I think you got to throw Yabusele in there right now.
I like it.
It might not be the greatest defensive lineup, but I think you'll be better on the glass in that situation. And I think Martin might just be more comfortable kind of coming off the bench in minutes to spell. And then when you're talking about more so of a closing lineup, that's where you might lean a little bit more towards Caleb Martin, maybe in there at times over Yabu, or you're kind of going offense for defense on some situations as well when you're matching up with guys on the perimeter. But I think in a perfect world, you're able to put out there Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain together, and they complement each other really well on the offensive side, I believe.
Yeah, totally agree there. And you did kind of shift into the Tyrese Maxey conversation. I did want to dig a little bit deeper into this, that for the first time, I think in the Tyrese Maxey era here in Philadelphia, I do think it's time to push back a little bit on what exactly is going down here. Now, he's been dealt about as difficult of hand as possible. He is the guy bearing the brunt of the sword of not having Paul George and Joel Embiid being the focal point there. As far as his output tonight, in 38 minutes, shot 7 of 19 from the field. As far as points overall, that he did ultimately end up with 16 on the game, 6 assists, 0 for 7 from 3. He was 1 of 7 yesterday, so just 1 for 13 over the past 2 games there. What are you seeing from Tyrese Maxey? What exactly is going wrong with him?
Yeah, the shooting from the outside is concerning, considering the improvements that he showed over the past 2 to 3 seasons. But still, he's still has that quickness in the open court. I might just be kind of chalking it up to right now a bit of a shooting slump. And he is also, I think we have to keep in mind, coming back from an injury in his own right. So I think there's a little bit too much of a kind of a panic right now.
Okay.
He's still performing at a decent enough level. But it is a little bit concerning for a guy that's shot as well as he has throughout his NBA career for him to be able to shoot like this. But I think there's a large enough sample size to give him kind of the benefit of the doubt. But once again, we're kind of chalking up some more excuses for why the Sixers aren't succeeding at this moment.
Yeah, and to be honest, we're now going to see his three-point percentage slip below 30%, which I never want to see with this. And what's becoming clear to me is that Tyrese Maxey misses Joel Embiid more than anyone. And what I mean by that is the gravity that he plays off, having another focal point of the offense. I think, to be perfectly honest, we're seeing Maxey struggle with being the guy that is the top of scouting reports. We kind of saw McCain go through this while Maxey was out. Now we're seeing Maxey be thrust into it. And it is a different story now that there is the contract in his back pocket, this dude being a max contract player. The expectations are there, and he does have to deliver a little bit more as the case. I think what the honest realization for me in the long haul is these conversations about building around Tyrese Maxey. I don't think he's ever going to be built to be a 1A certified guy. Does that mean that I don't think Tyrese Maxey can contribute at a high level on a championship contending team? Absolutely not. I still think he can, still believe in the guy to a pretty major extent, but I do think we're seeing a bit of the limitations. And frankly, I don't think they're ones that he has much he can do about. I think it kind of is the situation that we know his physical gifts, what he is a little bit limited in size, even like the explosion while he's still getting to his spots. It feels like he's not getting to his bread and butter shots in the way that was typically the case for him. So who knows? Over time, it may settle down. Just kind of a rough start to the season. I'm not hitting the panic button, but my meter has certainly raised since the start of the year. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I could get behind that as well. But I also think when we're talking about that, like a 1A guy on a championship contending team, like,
Very few.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, you look at so many good players in the NBA that haven't really sniffed a championship. You look at, I mean, just a couple in our decade of Damian Lillard and James Harden. Like, those guys are Hall of Fame, All-Stars perennially, and they're not, I don't think have ever really been looked at. Maybe you could look at James Harden and his run with the Rockets as that guy, but still never even got to the finals in that situation. So it's really hard to do. We kind of see it with undersized guards a little bit more, that might not really be the thing. It's more of a wing type of spot.
Yeah.
And in rare instance, we saw a guy like Jokic over the past couple of years, Anthony Davis maybe even, but that's primarily like a wing thing. And still with the Sixers, you got Paul George there on the wing, but you don't have that young and upcoming star on the wing that really would be kind of the building block for going forward. So that might kind of come back to his limitation at the end of the day. But I do agree he's more of a Robin than a Batman in an ideal world, and that's the way this roster is built. Though that's the situation that ideally he's in, and unfortunately we haven't been able to see any of that really this season.
Yeah, and we will zoom back in on the picture for this year, but just to leave with one kind of long-term thought, I'm not saying that I think Jared McCain is definitely going to be better than Tyrese Maxey. But what I will for sure say is the version of Jared McCain that arrived into the NBA at 20 years old is far more advanced than the version of Tyrese Maxey that arrived in the NBA at 20 years old. Let's not forget that this dude sat on the bench, was primarily and some of that had to do with Doc Rivers. There's no doubt about it. But shot below 30% his rookie season. The shot was a concern coming out of college. None of those things are true with Jared McCain here. So that is a conversation for in the future. Right now, they got to focus on digging out of the now 5-15 hole. They're going to be back in action against the Orlando Magic again on Friday. Hopefully with Joel Embiid back, that we did see a little bit of positive news there. But to me, you got to find a way to win that one. You got to split these two with the Magic. Obviously came up shorthanded tonight. So any final thoughts on that before we sign off, Ryan?
Yeah, I agree. Friday night is I'm not going to say a must win as you're so to be in December, but I keep going back to this. Every game you drop, you're another game further away from 500.
Yep.
I think just getting back to 500 is really the ultimate goal to feel safe about making the playoffs. And Friday night's a big one because I think my mindset is that they are expecting Embiid to play on Friday. That's why they gave George off tonight. Hopefully you have everyone on the floor healthy, the
More
four
than
of them
6 minutes.
at some point, and that's the goal. And you go out, hopefully win that game against the Magic. And by the way that they played tonight, I think that they should be feeling good going into that one if those two guys are back, and then beat the Bulls and once again continue the climb. You're not going to get it all back in one game, one shot. But yeah, Friday night it's a big one, and the Sixers got to right some of these wrongs.
Yeah. So the energy, the effort, much better tonight. There was still a lot of good to take from it, but ultimately it is just rough that it continues to be the worst ways to lose games for this Sixers team. So hopefully they're back in action and getting in the win column on Friday. Let me know what you guys think as far as a result of this game. How fired up about the referees are you? I'm kind of just in a disappointed feeling right now that this just sucks is kind of where I'm at on the Sixers season. But ultimately, I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video here. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button and dropping a like if you have not already. And me and Ryan will be back. Talk with you next time. Peace.